Hey, welcome back to Acoustic Interlude. I'm John Macdonell, and for this segment, we're inside our Studio A with a friend of ours, Michael Brant DeMaria. From our Studio A at WUWF on Acoustic Interlude, Michael Brant DeMaria. Michael, thanks so much for coming out.
Thanks, John. It's really good to be here.
Yeah, I can't believe we finally got you in the studio. It's great for somebody who lives here. It's harder to get you than some of these guys that come down from Nashville or come over from Austin.
Well, I'm glad we finally found a time, John.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
So am I. Before we go any further, congratulations, man, on Siyotanka. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, you got it perfect.
I mean, you had such incredible success with that.
Well, thank you, John. It's been an amazing journey, and it just seemed like momentum kept building from the show in 2008 that garnered 8 Crystal Awards, hitting #1 on the New Age Ambient World Charts last February.
Right.
And then went on to the Native American Music Awards, being nominated, and then ended up winning it in October. And it was a really wonderful opportunity because it ended up winning the Native American Music Award right about the time the Grammy ballots were out.
Right.
And
good timing.
Exactly. But I knew it was a possibility, but I didn't think it was a probability to actually have the Grammy nomination. And it was just an amazing experience. And being at the Grammys was incredible.
Oh, I bet. It must have been a ball.
Yeah,
it must have been really great. Now, tell us a little bit, while we're still on the subject of Siyotanka, this all began as like incidental music almost, for a stage production, right?
Correct. Yeah, I co-wrote the play by the same name, Siyotanka, with Stephen Lott, who is a fixture down at the Pensacola Little Theater. And I was going to do the music, and it's a story about how the Native American flute came to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to do the music for the play, and it was actually Stephen Lott's idea. He said, Michael, you should really do a CD. We make it available. It helped, the show, and you can sell it at the show. And he had to twist my arm actually a little bit because,
Glad he did. Yeah.
Because I really thought, it's not going to have as much life as the CDs than the Healing Sound series I do.
Yeah.
And it totally was, is the thing that took off and really has given my music a much wider audience.
Well, congratulations again.
Thank you, John.
Now, I am really curious about all these instruments you brought with you. Now, the first one you played, it just had incredibly beautiful sound and tone. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what it's made out of? And
yes, that was the title track to Siyotanka.
Right.
And basically, this is an amazing flute that's made out of spalted burled maple. And this particular flute maker said that he didn't think he could actually make a flute out of this, because when you have such spalting and burl in a piece of wood, it becomes fairly fragile. But what's amazing is that this particular flute has a tremendous warmth to it. It is a little bit more fragile than my other ones because it has a softer wood to it, but it seems to give that quality to the sound as well. So it's one of my favorite flutes, and it just has a tremendously warm quality to it.
It really does, yeah. Beautiful sound.
Thank you.
Now, I've noticed, and I've seen this before with Native American flutes, they have decoration. What is that about? In this case, we're looking at leather straps or cloth straps?
Correct. There's leather straps and what they call the bird, which is part of the sound hole. And basically each maker has sometimes a signature way that they braid the leather, and some of them have meaning, some of them don't, some are just decorative.
Right.
And it just basically has a great deal to do with the maker.
With the maker, yeah.
Correct.
Almost like a signature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of making, I know a lot of players of the Native American flute in particular end up making instruments. Have you tried that at all? Or?
I have, and I made 3 or 4 flutes, and I've learned that I am much more of a player than a maker. It's not my gift. I've struggled through it, and I've had fun, and it was great because it helped me relate and connect to the instrument much more.
Sure, I bet.
Just understanding the mechanics.
Sure.
But that's just not my gift. I learned that really quick.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have? I'm sure you do. Like 1 or 2 makers that you really like.
Yes, I do.
And now, how does that work? Do they make something custom for you, or do you just go and see what they have? Or?
Well, that's a great segue to this. You see this big flute on the floor?
That huge flute, yeah.
This actually was a custom flute, and yes, at this point, 90% of the flutes I get at this point are custom, because there might be a particular scale I'm looking for, or a particular key. And I was working on this album, Ocean, after Hurricane Ivan. It was part of my healing from Hurricane Ivan, as so much of us. And I talked to Jeffrey Ellis, who's up in Eureka, California, Northern California. And I said, Jeffrey, I need a really low flute. Mm-hmm. And at the time, nobody had made a flute lower than like a low ultra G. And this was a E that I really wanted him to make. And so he did. And I say this is the flute that put the trees and rocks to sleep, because it has this really deep sound. And it's featured on Ocean. It's on most of the tracks in one way or the other. It also played the part of the elk in Siyotanka, so you hear it on Siyotanka a number of cuts as well.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of opportunity to have flute makers make a custom flute, and this is one. There's a couple other actual custom flutes I have with me too today.
Right. Could you demonstrate, just, since you're holding it and have this enormous thing?
Sure. Listen to this.
Wow.
Isn't that sweet?
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
I will be taking pictures, and they're going to be on the website. But this, can you
Wonderful.
describe this thing? It's what, like
Yes,
over
this
3
is-
feet long,
yeah,
right?
it
Easily.
is. And it's actually it's made from a piece of ancient redwood that had fallen and that he made it out of.
No
And,
kidding.
Yeah, so it's a really amazing, a dark color to it. And it's also, what's amazing about this flute, John, is it's side blown. You actually,
Right.
you can't, partly it's because it would be harder with your fingers, but there's also, Jeffrey explained to me, there's some acoustic reasons why you have to make it a side-blown flute, which makes it a little bit more unique to play and a little more challenging to play, but it's the sound is worth it.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. It's beautiful, beautiful
Thank you.
instrument.
Thank you so much.
Michael Brant DeMaria on this edition of Acoustic Interlude. We'll be back in a couple of minutes, chat some more with Michael, but you've got a couple more pieces you can do for us in the meantime, I'm hoping.
Absolutely, John. Be happy to.
Michael Brant DeMaria from our Studio A. Beautiful.
Thank you, John.
Now, I have to ask you, you're not Native American.
There are rumors
To that
we
effect.
have Cherokee in our background, and there's a lot of interesting stories I could tell you that seem to indicate that, but I've not been able to substantiate it. So out of my respect for the Native American culture, I don't claim
Right.
ancestry.
And you really didn't grow up, as far as I know, in that culture, even near that culture. Is that right?
No, I actually grew up in Connecticut.
Wow.
But I did, it was interesting. We had like this Native American sacred pipe in in our home that my parents swear to this day they don't know where it came from. All these kind of interesting stories. And I was always, as a kid, there was a paper to do. From elementary school on up, I would pick Native American culture.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Really?
it was really very interesting synchronicities. So, although I was not raised around it per se, it seemed to somehow find its way into my life from a very early age.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's very strange.
It's
to
very,
me.
very cool story.
Thank you.
Now, do you remember how old you were when you actually, heard some of the music?
Well, that's an interesting point because actually I grew up playing piano and percussion, and it wasn't until 17 years ago when I first heard the Native American flute. So I was an adult. I was, 30, 31, and I was on my way up to enact a very traditional Native American vision quest on a Blackfoot reservation up in Alberta, Canada. And actually, my teacher had me go to some of these sacred spots in Glacier National Park. And on my way, I was at one of the park ranger stations where there was a demonstration of the Native American flute, and I heard it for the first time.
Wow.
And it literally brought tears to my eyes. And I went to the little Glacier Mountain cabin, and they had these CDs for sale.
Yeah.
Actually, no, they were tapes back then. They were tapes, and it was Carlos Nakai's.
Oh, Carlos Nakai.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It was
wonderful player.
Earth Spirit, and I played that all the way up and all the way back, and that whole trip, it was like, I have to get a flute when I get back. I have to learn, to play one of these instruments. And it pierced my heart open, and it was a very profound moment in my life. There's only been, about 3 moments in my life where music stopped me in my tracks like that. And that was one of them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Incredible. Now, you referenced a couple of times your Healing Sounds series.
Right.
What is all this about? And I know you're a clinical psychologist, trained as a psychologist, right?
By day, right?
Yeah, by day. Does this work into your practice as a psychologist? Do you use this,
Yes. In fact, you have to go through my music studio to get to my consulting room, and there's French doors between them. And most people say you can't see where one ends, the other begins, because I have flutes and drums and
everywhere,
keyboards
right?
between the 2 rooms, and a lot of these singing bowls. So the other side story is, real quickly, is that even before I was starting to play the Native American flute, I always had keyboards around. I got a Moog synthesizer when I was 17. I love these amazing sounds, and to justify that to my wife, what I would do is create relaxation tapes for my clients, going back 20 years.
Wow.
And so I would do the background, then I would voice over a relaxation thing. But me personally, the artist in me was really just, wanting an excuse to play music. And as that evolved, I had a lot of people say, gee, I would love to have an actual CD of just the music that I could play on a regular basis. And so that evolved into creating my first CD, The River, in 2003. And I did a lot of speaking engagements back then, too, and I'd always play, a little bit of music before and after. And people would come in and say, gee, your book's interesting, but I much prefer a CD of your music. So that was another inspiration to begin this Healing Sound series.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, speaking of recordings, you were telling me earlier you're working on a new one, right? Earth?
Correct.
Is that right?
Earth.
And how is that coming along?
It's coming along great, although I'm getting to that stage where I might have to really take a few weeks off to finally, finish it, to make that last push. But it's using the Native American flute in some real non-traditional ways. In fact, that last piece you just heard will be on it. It's called Peace in the Middle East, and it's using much more of a Middle Eastern kind of scale.
Right.
And so, we were talking about the shakuhachi before we started. I have some different indigenous world flutes from around the world that I'm, interspersing with. So the idea is it's going to take the listener on a journey around the earth, using music as the common language of the soul. And, that music to me crosses these, national, racial, religious barriers.
Sure. Yeah.
And to me, it's such a vehicle for bringing peace and connection and community. I always say our culture is very strange because it's one of the few cultures on the planet that's used music primarily for entertainment. when
Right.
in most cultures it's been for healing and community building.
Mm-hmm.
So the message of Earth is that, we are in this together, and trying to honor how all of these cultures, can find a different voice that can add to the song of the earth. And instead of it being a cacophony, it can come together like a symphony, to find a sense of harmony together.
I like that. I like that very much.
Thank you.
So we're looking forward to it coming out this year, maybe early 2011, maybe.
I hope that it will be out in October, no later than November, I hope, but the goal is to have it out October.
Very cool. Very cool. We're speaking with Michael Brant DeMaria. Got one final piece you can do for us? Little tiny guy.
Yeah, and this one is featured on the river, and also plays the birds in Siyotanka. And you can see, I get a lot of my best stuff from the birds, and you'll see why.
Michael Brant DeMaria from our Studio A at WUWF on Acoustic Interlude. Thank you so much for coming out. I've really enjoyed the session.
Thanks so much for having me, John. It's been great.
Now, if somebody wanted to get a hold of your recordings, where do we go?
iTunes, Amazon, they're all over the internet. You can also go to michaeldemaria.com or ontos.org, ontos.org.
Sounds good, Michael.
Thanks again for having me, John.
Okay.